Hi, you're listening to Scribble Talk, a podcast for bid and proposal professionals. My name is Bhaskar Sundram, and with my co-host Ashley Case, we'll be sitting down with our industry leaders to share their stories, discuss their career, and learn how to make an impact in the industry. Today's guest is Jeffrey Cohen. Jeff is the Senior Director of Proposal Management for Peraton, a provider of advanced cyber solutions to both federal and state governments. In his role, he leads a team of 30 proposal managers and coordinators and approximately 10 contractors. He's a resource manager for all proposal managers, coordinators, and oral coaches. His team manages bids ranging from tens of millions to billions. Prior to this, he was the Vice President of Proposals for WBB, Whitney, Bradley and Brown, which was acquired by Serco in 2021. Jeff is APMP Practitioner certified and has approximately 15 plus years of proposal experience. He lives in Northern Virginia and is associated with the APMP NCA chapter, where he has been active in the mentor-protégé program. Prior to that, Jeff was a career at Air Force, having served for 26 years. Now attaining the rank of colonel. Colonel Jeff is here. His hobbies include the beach, his 4 dogs, reading, and word games. Welcome to Scribble Talk, Jeff. Let's talk about you.
Bhaskar, thanks so much for having me. It was a pleasure meeting you in Dallas, and I look forward to our chat.
Thank you, Jeff. Let's go back to the very beginning. Where were you born? And let's talk about your early high school and education.
Sure. I was born in Boston, Mass, and I grew up in a small town just east of Boston. It was a little peninsula. I lived there until I went to college. So I went to the one high school that we had in my town, which was Winthrop Senior High School. Then I went off to university at Villanova University in the Philadelphia area. And then I did my graduate work at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University.
That's very good. How was it? Do you have any childhood memories?
Yeah, I was truly a beach bum as a kid. I mean, the first house, I lived in the same town for 18 years, like I said, and my first house was literally right across the street from the beach. My house I spent most of my youth in was about 100 yards from the beach. So I literally grew up on the beach. So I have a lot of fond memories of just hanging out in the very cold ocean, an ocean I would never go into today.
That's it. So early 18 years, and what brought you into the Air Force? 18 years in the place where you were. You have been a beach boy all along. But what took you out from there to enter the Air Force, Jeff?
So where I grew up right in the shadow of Logan Airport, which is a major airport in Boston. Mm-hmm. And I used to see the planes coming and going all the time. And I always had, and my dad was fascinated by planes when he was a kid. So I always had this fascination with planes. And when I was graduating college, I had started doing the job interview thing like most people do. I was a business major. And I had this realization that I had this bugging me to fly. And either I was going to learn to, I was either going to go do it now, or I was going to turn 50 and say, I wish I had. So I started visiting my local recruiters and ended up in the Air Force, as opposed to the Navy, because I decided that flying off a 10,000-foot runway that doesn't move was safer than flying off a 300-foot runway that does.
Wow. So you had a dream of joining, or you liked the airplanes, and you didn't spend 26 years. Not many people actually had the privilege of flying planes and doing Air Force. How was it, Jeff? You had this dream, you had this passion to join, and when you actually joined, how was it? Was it the same?
It was, my Air Force career was great. I really had it was very interesting in the sense that during my time, I joined during the Cold War, and I was off doing things other than flying airplanes when the wall fell. So I had these two very different careers: the Cold War career and the post-Cold War career. And I was really fortunate, I guess, in one way, that I happened to be in the wrong place at the right time, and I got to do a lot of really cool things that most people didn't get to do. So it just led for a very rich experience. My entire year. I mean, of all the assignments I had, I only had one that I didn't like. And so, yeah, overall, it was definitely a dream. And I planned on getting out after 5 years. And, when the 5-year mark came, I kind of looked in the mirror and said, what the hell are you doing? It's like, you like doing what you do. And I couldn't imagine doing anything else at that point.
26 years, Jeff, in Air Force. What fond memories do you have?
Oh, so many. My God. My first duty assignment was in Okinawa, Japan, which to go over there as a 23-year-old was just remarkable. And just to get that kind of exposure to the Far East that I had. And the unit that I was in, we used to go all over. I got to go to Australia, Korea, Philippines, New Zealand. And like my very first trip in the Air Force from Okinawa was down to the Philippines, which again was just this huge, mind-blowing experience for a 23-year-old kid. And then one of the best trips I ever had, we left Okinawa, we spent 2 days in Guam, then we spent 10 days in New Zealand, then 4 days in Australia, then 2 more days in Guam, then back to Okinawa. And it was just being able to see that much of the world at that young, really, especially at that point, this is in the early mid-'80s, makes you realize just how lucky we were in America, that, what a great country it was, and how fortunate we were to have the privilege that we have living there, because you saw a lot less fortunate countries lived.
First trip, 23 years off to Japan. And how was the flying experience? Did you fly any jets?
Yeah, I was a navigator, so I wasn't actually hands-on on the flying it, but yeah, it was amazing because everything was, for a navigator, it was the ultimate and challenging because everything was over water. I mean, everything you did was over water, which is the biggest challenge for a navigator when you have no navigation cues. So it made you grow up very, very quick. And we got to do a lot of really interesting missions. We were working with a lot of the fighters and doing real world kind of stuff versus training stuff that I would have been doing had I been assigned in the States. So again, it was just a great career growth in terms of learning my skill and my craft, seeing the world. And because we did a lot of real world stuff, we're actually making an impact on national security policy. So it just, as you looked up what you were doing and the impact of what you were doing, it was really a pretty heady experience.
Just talk us through, as listeners, we hardly know how the Air Force works, Jeff. How does the whole thing work? I mean, there is an aircraft and there is a pilot, then what happens?
How long a dissertation do you want? We only get 45 minutes. Basically, you have units that work to have perennial training relationships together. And you'll set up training stories where you both mutually benefit from that. So, in my airplane, I was flying air refueling airplanes over there. We refueled other airplanes in flight. And there were 2 pilots, a navigator and a boom operator who actually passed the gas from our plane to the receiver airplanes. And you would just schedule times that you would meet up in flight, do your thing, and then go off and do more training. And sometimes those missions were real world. Like I was actually sitting on alert, which is in a heightened state of readiness that we were ready to go in a moment's notice when the Korean airliner 007 was shot down. And, I was on the crew that was a first responder to that. We dragged the F-15s, which were the fighters on our base, up to northern Japan to be closer to where the airliner was shot down as they started doing salvage operations. So that was one of my first experiences where all of a sudden I'm implementing national security, moving F-15s from Okinawa up to Yokota. So it's just a massive apparatus. It's really the military in general is just, it's a thing of beauty how we come together to do what we do.
That's brilliant. I mean, there is so many skills that you might have learned being part of the Air Force, Jeff. What did Air Force taught you?
Wow. It gives you a lot of self-confidence because, one of the things that's great about the Air Force, the military in general, but the Air Force in particular, because that's my experience, is it's truly equal opportunity in the sense of if you're good and you do your job well, you'll do okay, regardless of your skin color, regardless of your religion. It just didn't matter for the most part. It was an equal opportunity society as we had growing up. So I think, learning about other people and other cultures was huge for me because I grew up in a very small town. It was a very white town. My whole world was Catholics and Jews. That's all I knew growing up. So it was really an eye-opening experience to see what the rest of the world was. So that was one thing. Like I said, getting to go to as many countries as I had been to between places like Philippines and Africa and Europe, and you see how so many different people have so much less than we did, that it gives you a true appreciation for what we have and makes you want to help those that don't have, especially if they're trying to help themselves. I think you get a big appreciation for just how hard I got to go. I got to go to war a couple times, just how hard it is to fight a war. And as I moved up in rank, and understood national security policy and things like that, that I saw how presidents were much more willing to use the military as a first resort in solving national security problems as opposed to a last resort. The military is easy to implement, it's visible to implement, but it isn't always the right answer. And that's how you end up in these long wars. You know, Afghanistan is a perfect example. You end up in these long wars where the political objectives really aren't figured out, and they keep changing. We did in Vietnam, we did in Afghanistan, and you see the downside of that. You know, in Afghanistan, I got to go over and support that war. My son got to go over and fight that war. And it wasn't uncommon for, you know, generations of families to go over to that war. It was just so long.
Wow, Jeff. I mean, like 26 years of career in, say, 5 minutes is very hard to explain. But
it is. The next year at the conference, we'll get together. We'll drink a beer over it. We'll talk more.
Totally, Jeff. So 26 years in Air Force, you know, you set your grounding there. You spend most of your, what we call the adult life there.
Right.
When did you actually came out? Why did you come out? And how was it coming to the real world and then positioning a new career out of it?
I love the fact that you use the term "the real world" because that's what I was used to, because we were so insular in the military. I retired in 2007, and basically the military has an up route system. If you don't get promoted, pretty much they want you to leave, and that makes sense because for the officer corps, you're only allowed to have so many officers in any one grade. So when someone leaves the military, it opens up room for a younger person to come in and replace you. By the time I hit 26 years and I was a colonel, I knew I wasn't going any further. I wasn't going to make general. And I was ready to go. It's like, you know, 26 years is, you know, you've not said it specifically, but you've certainly hinted at it. It's a long time. And when you're in the military for that long, you give up a lot, you miss a lot, you're gone a lot. It's not an easy life on the member. It's not an easy life on the family. Military members give up a lot to do what they do to protect the country. So I was more than ready to come out when my time came. And I was my last assignment was in the Pentagon. So I was here in the Washington, D.C. area. And I stayed here because the job opportunities were really, really good. And I thought about going back to Boston. And then I thought about Boston winters. I said, nope, not doing that, because Boston winters are pretty terrible. So I stayed here in Virginia. And I love Virginia. It's a great state.
Wow. So how did you pick up proposal management as your career? It happened, or how did you end up in this career?
Oh, I think like most of us, I just fell into it. I mean, I've never met anybody in this field, as many people as you asked, and nobody grows up wanting to be a proposal manager, right? Just doesn't happen. We all kind of end up in it by accident, I think. So when I retired from the Air Force, I got hired by a company that was primarily a Navy company. And they hired me and I think 4 or 5 other people to basically start an Air Force business unit within that company. And I didn't know what a proposal was really. I mean, I had contractors supporting me when I was working in the Pentagon. So I knew things like proposals happen, but I had no idea the mechanics of it. And the guy who owned the company that I worked for used to have this motto that good work gets more good work. And when you don't have any past performance, I learned that existing good work doesn't get new work. So we had to learn how to do proposals. And I had no idea what I was doing. I had no clue. And every time I try to get, you know, me and a few other people try to get one done, we just got our knickers ripped because we were doing it all wrong. So I convinced my boss to let my brother-in-law, his name's Bob Justice, he's been doing proposals like forever. And I said, let's hire him to come in and teach us how to do proposals. So we paid for Bob to come in to do proposals. And he said, you know, Jeff, you're pretty good at this. I go, okay. And I was really a program manager at the time. And I really didn't like program management. I didn't like studies and analysis, which is what the companies did. And I was a business major in college. So the business side of business always kind of attracted me. And after I'd been with my first company for 5 years, I decided it was time to go do something different. Because that's one of the things that's really hard coming out of the military is you really don't know what the options are. You don't know what you want to do. It's like your life has been really pretty prescribed for all that time that you're in. And, you know, I talk to people who are getting out now about it too. It's really hard to figure out what you want to do because you don't know what the options are what options are even out there. And after I left that job after 5 years, I kind of made a mental shift, and I'm in my 50s at this point. And I really kind of made a mental shift to go into proposals, and I started doing Shipley training. Ultimately, got picked up by Shipley as a consultant, and that really kind of got the ball rolling.
Wow, that's very powerful. And today you are, you're managing a team of 30 plus.
Yeah.
Managers, including at Peraton. Talk us through, over the years, you might have done a lot of bids in this 15 plus year. Any memorable bids coming to your mind, Jeff?
Yeah, the one certainly did. In by objective measures, it isn't huge, but it was huge at the time. So I was the proposal man. When I was at WBB, I led the proposal, which ended up being the biggest bid WBB had ever done and the biggest win we'd ever done. So it was like a 5-year, $90 million bid. Like I said, not big in the scale of things, but it was big for WBB. And I led that and won that. So that was certainly my most memorable proposal experience. Other than that, they all kind of washed together.
That's brilliant. I mean, from being a proposal person yourself, working, learned from Shipley Consulting, who now lead a team of 30 plus. Talk us through about Peraton. What do they do and your team, and how is it building a team or managing a team?
So Peraton, I'll do that question first. Peraton, I didn't know much about the company beyond what I just kind of read in press releases when I was interviewing for this job. A third-party recruiter had found me, and I went through a bunch of interviews to get it. And it was certainly a big scaling up for me, because when I was at WBB, it was a $300 million company and a $200 million company, and I had like 6 people working for me. Now I'm in a $7 billion company with 40 people, almost 40-ish people working for me. So the scale was huge. The size of the bids was beyond anything I've ever seen. I mean, in Peraton, we just did a $4 billion bid, which just blew my mind. So the Peraton as a company does high-end cyber services. And as I start reading our bids when I do color reviews, some of the stuff we do is just so cool. We do enterprise services. We do networks. We're doing deep space network for NASA. We're doing work for JPL. We've got a lot of the IT infrastructure for the city of Irvine, California, Indian healthcare system. It's just, we are all over the place within the federal and state governments, city governments, but it's all really on the cybersecurity, IT, that kind of stuff. And it's, like I said, some of the places we are just blows my mind when I read our past performances. As far as being that team, it was hard because of COVID. So when I was at WBB is when we went into COVID, and the team that I had at that point, I knew them all, right? And so I had familiarity with them. We've been in the same building and everything. So going into COVID and going into work from home was not a huge leap beyond the cultural shift that I had to make, because I'd never done that before. But it was easy to deal with. I found ways to make it much more manageable for me until I got comfortable in that environment. But then the challenge really came when I got hired by Peraton. That was just last December. I now had this team that was huge by my standards anyways. And they were dispersed throughout the country. I mean, I'm in Northern Virginia. I have proposal managers in New Jersey, Maryland, Colorado, Texas, Georgia. So we're all over the place. So trying to figure out how to build a team in a dispersed environment like that, working from home, and not knowing anybody. I mean, I could trouble these people in the streets and really not know them. That became a huge leadership challenge for me.
Wow, I think that's huge. I think, as you rightly said, in different places, still, proposals never stop. You still need to work through the deadlines, and it's much easier to sit next to somebody, talk to them about, hey, this is how things needs to be done, improve and review, rather than now you need to do it with Microsoft Teams or so many other tools. Hopefully we are coming out of it, Jeff, and there is a hybrid working environment coming soon. But did you manage to meet all your team members yet, or you haven't?
I have not. I've met maybe 3, 4. I met my boss once, twice. I take that back. Of my team members in person, I've met maybe 3. Because we don't come in. I mean, right now, our corporate policy is stay home. And I get it, because right now, I have now had 7 consecutive weeks with a positive COVID test on my team. Every time a proposal team comes into a war room, there's a COVID outbreak. So it's very much alive and thriving in this part of the country anyways. So the motivation to come in is really pretty low, because the last thing we need, our pursuit velocity right now is through the roof. So I need to keep my team healthy. So the guidance I've given my team is, unless you have a really good, compelling reason to come into the office, don't.
That's brilliant. I think you are doing the right thing, because health and well-being is of utmost priority. And
Yeah.
Considering you had enough grounding with the Air Force, and as you rightly mentioned, equality, opportunities and stuff, I'm sure your team is lucky to have you. and it's the other way around as well for them. So at what point in your proposal career did you come across APMP as an industry body?
I think it was, I figured out to join the chapter. I think it might have been through LinkedIn or something like that. It was a while ago. I don't remember exactly how I found APMP, but I did. And when I found that I joined APMP because I wanted to get certified. And then once I joined, I associated myself with the National Capital Area. And so it was really kind of a natural evolution. Then I went to my first APMP conference in 2016, which was Boston. And really the main reason I went to it at that point, because I didn't know much about the organization, was it was a chance to go home and visit friends and family type thing. I'd make a long weekend out of it. But I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the people I met. I learned a lot. And I've gone every year since, except the year we missed for COVID. And it really comes down to that, I go there and, you learn a lot in the seminars themselves, and there's certain focus areas that I kind of focus on each year, depending on what's going on in my life. But a lot of the conversations that you have in the bar in between sessions and at dinner and, at lunch and everything else, just, you learn so much, you meet so many people. It's just, I find them to be really valuable experiences.
2016 Boston was my very first conference to APMP conference.
And we didn't even find each other that week.
I was totally new. I was just hiding behind Howard, not then. When Howard was just little bit, he was just taking me to everywhere. Man, this is it.
Well, that's right. I took some friends on like a walking tour of the city. We had a blast. It was a really good time.
That's good. That's good. So, joining 2016 APMP conference to now being part of the NCA chapter mentor-protégé program. Talk us through about APMP NCA chapter and your contributions and the wider team, Jeff.
It's a great chapter. I mean, I'm not as involved as I'd like to be. I just don't have time to do everything I want to do like everybody else. But the leadership has been fabulous. They've done a great job with the chapter. Obviously, it's one chapter of the year a couple of times, I think. For I think the 3 years in a row I did the mentor-protégé, which was just a really rewarding experience for me. I need to get back into that. It's like I hadn't heard from them in a while, so I just could get back into that. But it's been a good chapter. It's been good for me, and I've thoroughly enjoyed my affiliation with them.
Brilliant. So I think we talked about your early life career, Air Force. We moved into proposals, then we talked about APMP. Now let's move on a little bit more to get to know you personally. Talk us through 3 things not many people know about you, Jeff.
Okay. I don't think many people know that I was actually in the Pentagon on 9/11 when the planes hit.
Ooh.
Yes, that was the day in my life. And I kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier that during my military career, I deployed in support of wartime operations 3 times, the contingency operations 2 times. And that's why I say I got to do some really cool stuff that a lot of people didn't get to do. And I've traveled a lot. I've been to over 50 countries. I lost track. And I've been to every continent except South America and Antarctica.
That's fascinating. I don't think this is so unique, Jeff, compared to what we heard before. My God, I mean, I passed out during the 9/11, which means that whole year, because when you pass out, I was planning to come to the States for my master's. Then I got into few universities, but then because of this 9/11, like many other international students, I wasn't able to come in. But that gives me the memory for right or wrong reasons. But it has a solid part in your life as well. But my God, thank you for sharing that, Jeff. Jeff, what are your hobbies and interests?
I don't have a lot of hobbies. I think, I have 4 dogs, so they become my hobby. They take up a lot of my time, obviously. I've found myself lately getting into cooking, which I never did like before at all. And I've found myself, and my wife's enjoying the fact that I'm getting into cooking because it's taking the burden off of her. I love going to the beach. We have a house on the beach down in North Carolina. So I love going to the beach and walking my dogs on the beach. I love word games, and I like to read.
Nice. Let's officially enter the rapid random fire question round, or in honor of Howard Nut, we call it the Nutters round. Are you ready?
Sure.
Perfect. So, question number 1. What's the very first book that you read that you loved?
Ooh, I got to think about that one. The very first, I'm old, you know, I've read a lot of books. I think the first one that I love that I remember that's jumping out of that, I guess I got to go with my gut, and I'll go with The Catcher in the Rye.
That's interesting. And when did you read that, Jeff?
I remember reading, I was probably in junior high, I'm guessing. I mean, I'm sure I read a bunch of books before that. I mean, I loved, all the Dr. Seuss books, but I think you're thinking something more meaningful than that.
That's nice. I know you like word games as well. What's your favorite word game?
My wife will tell you that I'm a Words with Friends junkie, and I could not argue with her if she said that.
That's good. That's good. So what's the nickname that your friends have given you? And does it have a meaning?
Well, I've been Jeff most of my life. I never really had a nickname. I had a quote unquote call sign when I was in the Air Force. It was Sammy. And it really came out of nowhere. A friend of mine who I was flying with had a friend named Sammy Cohen growing up. So he just started calling me Sammy, and it caught on. But I've never really had a nickname.
So it's Jeff, I know you made it sound simple. Colonel Jeff, that's 26 years career. How, I think this is not even a Nutters round. It just came to my mind. How is the structure, Jeff? I mean, like, to get to colonel, how many layers do you need to cross?
6. So currently, the officer grades and then the enlisted grades too, you have like 01 through 10, which is an 01 is a second lieutenant, and 010 is a 4-star general, colonel's an 06.
Oh, wow. And after colonel, what happens? Admirals and stuff, is it?
The next grade would be a 1-star general.
Oh, nice. Perfect. So if you were the captain of a pirate ship for some reason, what would your name of your ship be, and what would the title for you? How would you name yourself? Captain what?
Captain Jeff.
And what will be the name for your pirate ship?
Oh, geez, I don't know. Probably whatever my wife told me.
So what do you miss about the Air Force, Jeff?
Pardon me?
What do you miss about the Air Force?
The people. The military in general, I don't care what branch you're in. When you get people who come out of the military, almost invariably, when you ask them what they miss, they're going to say the people. There's just the diversity and the quality of people in the military is just so high. You miss the camaraderie that goes along with that. So the people's one thing. The sense of mission was huge for me. That you're doing something for the country, you're protecting the country. That I really, my dad was a World War II vet, and he really instilled in me growing up about the idea of serving your country. So that idea kind of was part of my driver to go in the Air Force. So that sense of purpose, that sense of mission for sure, and really just the travel and seeing as many things I got to see.
Got it. And just again, it's passing. I just thought this. When you took off for the very first time and you were on the sky, how was it?
Scary. Very scary. I had no confidence in my own abilities. Like, damn, I'm going to get lost. And I did okay. And that's one of the things the military does a really good job of, teaching you a skill and building you up and getting you better and making you good at your craft. But yeah, that first time was terrifying. Especially if you're solo. When you're up with an instructor, you get a safety valve. But when you go up for your first solo time, it's like, what's scary?
And when you do have to take somebody else with you, how was that experience?
Well, I always say, I flew on a crewed airplane, so I was always on a group. And that was part of the challenge of flying what we call a crewed airplane. Like I said, we had 4 people on our crew. I was learning to work as a team to get things done. And that becomes really, really important, is understanding how each of the members on your team works, so you know where they're strong, where they're not so strong, and you start filling in gaps. So the teamwork is huge.
Wow, brilliant. So if we are playing hide and seek right now, Jeff, where would you hide?
Who am I hiding from?
From me.
I would go into the back end of the storage room in my basement.
Oh, wow. Back room in the storeroom.
You'll never find it back there.
My God. And that's quite impossible to find you there. So if you are being invited to join a reality TV show, which one would you be?
I hate reality TV. The only one that I even watch, which I would never do it, but I have to answer the question, is Deadliest Catch. That's the only reality TV show I watch, and I'd be scared to death to do what those guys do.
Totally.
I'm way too old and way too out of shape to do what those guys do. It's like that is a brutal living.
So I know you like beaches. What are your favorite beaches?
I love the beach where my beach house is down in Corolla, North Carolina. It's just a gorgeous beach. Other beaches that I've been at that are beautiful is when I was in Okinawa had beautiful beaches. There's a beautiful beach I used to go to in Athens, had a great beach. I mean, where I grew up in New England, I mean, we had beautiful beaches. It's just the water was too cold, and the beach was rocky, but they had their own beauty about them.
So again, now you just took a flight and you just crashed into a deserted island, but you had 5 things with you. But assuming that might happen, you packed 5 things with you. Any 5 things, what do you think you would carry to a deserted island in case?
We actually had training on this.
Really?
A whistle.
Oh, wow.
That would, because a whistle, the sound of a whistle carries really far. So for rescue, some kind of fire starter, a flint of some sort to start fires. Probably water purification. A knife.
Okay. And
parachute cord.
That's brilliant. This is the first time somebody has taken a very logical approach on this, maybe because you are trained on that. Yep. Normally, it's like, I will take my book, I will take my family.
You're no good until you burn it. It's no value. You got to think about survival.
Exactly. That's very good. I think listeners, if you are listening to this episode, you remember I might ask you the same question. You now know the right answer to that. So that's good. So what crime do you think you would be arrested for?
Speeding.
That's interesting. I think we all might have edged it. So what's in your music playlist, Jeff? What kind of music do you listen to?
I am a aged 70s classic rock kind of guy. I still think the music that I grew up with is the best music out there. I'm into all different kinds of rock. I love Billy Joel, the Allman Brothers, Stevie Ray Vaughan. I'm a huge Rush fan, Led Zeppelin. I like Fleetwood Mac. So it's a pretty eclectic, but it's definitely along the classic rock 70s kind of stuff that I grew up with. That's
really beautiful musical era, really. So if you had to choose a completely new profession, Jeff, what would you pick?
One that I can actually do. I can't pick rock star type thing.
Do you play any musical instrument?
I played trumpet when I was in high school, up through high school, but no, nothing that's going to make me a rock star. I mean, really, at this point in my life, I could do something. I've always liked the hospitality industry. I know it's really tough, but I could see myself in hotel management.
That's interesting. What do you normally eat for breakfast?
I have a couple of go-tos. I love bagels, so I typically will have either a bagel with cream cheese and lox on it, or I'll make a sausage, egg, and cheese bagel sandwich.
That's nice. That's the end of the rapid random fire question round. Hope you enjoyed it. So who are the people who have been the most influential in your life and career?
For one, I'd have to say my dad. My dad came from nothing. His parents were Polish immigrants. They didn't speak English. They worked in leather factories in the, just north of Boston. My dad had to learn English in school, so he really came from a poor family. He leveraged the GI Bill coming out of the Navy in World War II to go to college. And he really kind of taught me the value of hard work. And I also learned from things he didn't do. My dad was always hesitant to make a decision, and because of his hesitancy, sometimes good opportunities passed him by. So I learned that when it feels right, make the decision and go for it, and just adjust later. Then I had, and he also inspired me to serve my country. I mean, he really put a sense of love of the country in me. I mean, he wished he'd stayed in the Navy coming out of World War II. His mother and father told me he needed to get out, so he did. But he really taught me to work hard and to serve my country, and that a lot of good basic lessons learned from life. Another one was a leader I had mid-career in the late 80s. In the career field that I was in the Air Force Navigator, it was not a great career field for advancement. It was typically the good jobs typically went to the pilots, not us. But he taught me that if you work hard and do well, you will succeed. Because he had succeeded in my career field, and it really taught me that people recognize who works hard, and people who work hard get rewarded. And that was just a valuable lesson for me to learn at that point in my career, that just don't worry about everything else, just work hard, do your job, and good things will happen to you. And then I had a leader, my last one, I had a leader when I was working in the Pentagon. It was my last year or two in the Pentagon. And I was one of the senior colonels on his staff. And he would frequently get invited to meetings that he didn't want to attend because he knew they were going to try to force him into a decision that he wasn't ready to make yet. So he would send me to the meeting for him. And I would ask him, it's like, what do you want me to say? What do you want me to do? What kind of guidance are you going to give me? And he just said, Jeff, just be yourself. And that was really, really liberating in the military, because there's so many pitfalls and things you can step into that can get you in trouble politically. He just said, go do what you do. And I'd come back from a meeting and I'd say, hey, sir, I think I might have broke some glass in there. Just look at me and go, good. So, and really that taught me, when you have good people, let them go. They may not do things the way you do them, but let them learn, let them do their things, and have confidence that they're going to do okay. If you hire good people, they'll do okay. And so that really gave me a lot of confidence in my own abilities, especially as a senior officer, that, when you hit colonel in the military, it's like you have automatic credibility until you prove you're stupid. So when you speak, you want to say something smart. So it really gave me a lot of confidence in myself.
That's very powerful, Jeff. Thank you for sharing. Jeff, what's the one personal trait you like the most about yourself?
I hate this kind of question. Let me think. I think it's leadership. Whenever I'm put in a leadership position, my team likes me. I take care of them. I find it very easy to take care of my team. I'm empathetic with them. I guide them. I take care of them, and I love that part of my job. I mean, there are people who love leadership. There are people who don't like being in charge of teams. I love being a leader. It's a passion of mine. I love being able to help people grow. So I think that would probably be it's just being that, and that's part of like the frustration with my current job, is a sense of it's hard to do that in a completely remote environment, but I love leadership.
That's beautiful, Jeff. Jeff, who haven't you seen or talked to in a long time, and you hope that they're doing okay?
My best friend, Scott. I have known Scott since I was 4 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, and we lived, we met in nursery school. And then I moved in 3 doors down from him, and we were basically inseparable from the time we were 6 till we graduated high school. And we talk occasionally, but not often enough. He's up in New Hampshire now, and we usually catch up on birthdays, and we've been remiss. So it's like, yeah, it'd probably be Scott.
That's nice. So do you remember the time you last wrote a letter, and who did you write it to?
I haven't written a letter in forever.
Okay,
really, man, I haven't written a letter in forever. I couldn't even answer that one.
Yes. If you are planning to write a letter, say tonight, who will you write it to?
Okay. Maybe Scott.
Yeah, totally. Why not?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's nice. So, what's the one common myth about the proposal profession, Jeff, that you want to debunk?
It doesn't always suck. I think people think, it's like it's really funny. Like when you do, one of the great things about proposals is that the people who are in it, and it's one of the things I love about APMP is we're passionate about it. We love what we do. But people on the outside, whether, and I deal with, that's one of the great things about proposals, you deal with everybody, recruiting and contracts and everybody else. And I so often hear from them, it's like, man, I wouldn't want your job. And really our job's pretty cool. I mean, we keep people employed. It's really a pretty good job. It can be stressful at times, but if you can manage to find a gig where you have a pretty decent work-life balance, the work at the end of the day is so meaningful that I think it debunks the idea that it's just such a miserable life, and it really isn't. I mean, you have miserable moments, there's no doubt about it. But when that win comes in, and you've given people a job, it's just so rewarding.
It's a beautiful thing, like when you write a proposal and the proposal becomes a contract where, as you rightly said, where people move into buildings or some new service or something transformational happens, and you can see, what, that's the thing that I wrote and my team wrote, and that's now giving people lives and other things. But that's really amazing, Jeff. Thank you for sharing. Jeff, what advice would you give fellow bid and proposal professionals?
As I think about it, it's there's no formula for success. There's going to be stumbles along the road. Things are going to go bad for you. You're going to have bad days. Embrace your mistakes. Learn from them. The only time you fail is if you fail to learn at the end of the day, as trite a saying as that may be. You're not going to please everyone, but, focus on doing a good job, continuing to grow professionally, and just keep getting better every day. And if you have a bad day, everybody gets knocked down. It's not about getting knocked down. It's about how you get up. You just got to pick yourself out, brush yourself off, and get up and keep moving, because you will get better. It's going to happen.
That's brilliant, Jeff. Jeff, is there any part of your life or career, or is there anything else you would like to tell to the listeners before we close the episode?
I think really it relax. My big thing is having gone to war and then reflecting on that experience in business. You frequently see people in business getting very tense about all kinds of things. And when I tie that together with my wartime experience, I've told people on occasion, it's like, relax. No decision you make is going to cause somebody to lose their life. So it's just business. If you make a mistake, let's figure out what you did. Let's figure out how not to do it again. Let's correct it and let's move on. But don't beat yourself up over every little mistake you make. It's like it's business. So take care of yourself. Take care of your team. Be kind to each other. It's kindness goes so far.
Wow, Jeff, I didn't expect that one, but it's amazing, Jeff. Really, really powerful. I think when it comes from from the wartime experience, it makes it even more powerful. I can see how people can get stressed for, I missed my deadline.
My proposal is non-compliant, whatever it be. It's like, yeah, I got it. You screwed up. Let's not do it again, but nobody's going to die.
That's powerful. Yeah. I always tell my family the same. Nobody died because of this thing. Just because I haven't washed the plates properly, nobody died. That's the difference.
Exactly right. That's like small stuff.
Exactly. But that's brilliant, Jeff. Thank you so much for sharing. And it's been an absolute privilege to have you with us at Scribble Talk. Wish you, your family, your dogs, and your colleagues at Peraton, everybody's caught, and everybody around you, all the good health and happiness. Continue to inspire us as you always do, Jeff. Until I see you next year, look after yourself, stay healthy, stay happy, and I'll speak to you very soon.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed our discussion. Thanks again.
Thank you, Jeff.
To our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. Please visit batchyscribble.com/podcast to listen to this episode and check out any of our other previously recorded episodes. If you've enjoyed today's interview, don't forget to subscribe, review, and share the Scribble Talk podcast. We hope you'll check out our next episode where we interview another industry expert and special guest. Until then, it's Ashley Kays,
Bhaskar Sundram,
signing off.